Hello, everyone. This is Joshua from Ask the Child Whisperer, and I wanted to take time to make this video for you. It's a personal share. I think that it will be impactful for many of you to think about big events, things that you're super excited about doing with your kids, and how it can get complicated. So I guess if I have to title this, it would be Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. After 4 hours. So you know what I do. I work with kids, all kinds of kids. So when it was time for me to go to Disney with my kids, I got pumped. I strategized. Let me wait till they're this old. No, not now, maybe later in the spring. Should it be warm? Should it be cold? All those things. Well, in the end, we go to Disney. And I think it's going to be, the happiest place on earth, because starting off the gate, I am excited. I know everything about Disney. I've been there. I'm packing my snacks, right? I've been a mom for how long? I can do this. So I'm packing the snacks. I have them in their comfortable clothes and their comfortable tennis shoes. So I'm thinking I have it all together. I am heading toward a successful experience. Well, guess what I forgot? Many of us forget. Our kids have no idea what Thanksgiving at the grandparents' is. They have no idea what you're going to be a big brother means. They have no idea what we're going to Disneyland means. They have no idea what we're talking about. And my two, little and big, are deep thinkers. One, a big, much deeper thinker than the other. So that meant I had underestimated her assessment system. So little did I know, she was overwhelmed as soon as we were walking toward the gate. She was looking at the people, all of the cars parking. Why did it take us so long? Why did we have to circle back and forth, right? She has big eyes. She thinks she's excited. That's the word she's going for. I'm excited. I'm going to Disneyland. But as that adventure began, her anxiety began to grow. Why? Because she couldn't picture what was coming. She didn't know what was happening. So one of the things I want everyone to remember is just because we're excited doesn't mean that's going to transfer over to your kid. Going into marketing mode, it'll be fantastic. Don't worry, there will be people there. Everyone loves coming to Disney. Do you know how long I've waited to bring you here? None of those things will mean anything to your child. What it does do, it is undermines their ability to attach, to feel confident and see you as a helper and as a support, because they feel that you are so out here and they are way over here. And the more you talk, the more distant you are from what they are experiencing. So first things first, as soon as you see your kid tense up, stop talking. Why do you want to stop talking? Because at that point, I need you to start taking in what they're looking at. Are they looking down? Are they looking up? Are they looking at people? Are they looking at things? Are they looking at dogs? Are they looking at bushes? So you're trying to get a sense of, so how are they tracking this experience? Where can I start so that they feel I am with them? So she was looking at the people and I was like, are you surprised how many people you're seeing? Are you looking at their clothes? Are you looking at people dressed like in Disney stuff? Are you looking at the parents with strollers? Which part are you looking at? So when I was able to ask her that, then I can get some information to work with. And that's where I'm going to start coaching my kid. The second thing to remember is when you're doing something that you know is fun and exciting, you've waited your whole life to do, or the whole summer or whatever period of time you've waited to do this, you are anticipating joy, 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 like instant joy, because you're flooded with it, right? You have memories, you have plans, you have visions for it. Well, your child doesn't have visions, plans, because they don't know what to plan for. So they may say, yeah, we're going to the pumpkin patch, but they don't know what that looks like, how it works. What is a pumpkin patch? Is there one pumpkin and everyone's going to look at the one pumpkin? So remember that they cannot imitate your joy. And even if they do imitate it, once you get to a place, chances are then they have to reframe what they're joyful about, because there's going to be a million and one aspects that they didn't account for. They don't know they exist. They don't know they're at play. So oftentimes a kid will come into something, and so they look for something that makes sense to them, which is, why Disney and all these places are brilliant. You have balloons at the entrance because kids know balloons. I know a balloon. I've seen a balloon. Now, this is a jazzier balloon than I've ever seen. You know what? If I get a balloon, I am anchored. I have something familiar to help me guide me through all these other parts I don't know anything about. Why are all these stores here? Why are people coming in and out? Why are people eating? Why are people sitting? Why are people standing at things that look like doors? And we're like, well, those are lockers. What does that mean? Right? So children will look for something that anchors them, which is why they quickly ask you to buy something. Generally, it's not that they're being materialistic. It's because it's a familiar object that will anchor them moving forward. Now, do you have to buy that thing? No, you don't have to buy it. I just want you to know that it isn't materialism. It is how to feel settled, how to hold on to one thing that is familiar. The next thing I want to talk about is you are ready to have fun. You are ready to have fun. Why? Because you know how this whole thing works and you yourself set it up. So you've been looking forward to it. Your child doesn't necessarily know what to look forward to. So whether you surprise them or you've told them in advance, don't go into the mindset thinking you're going to have fun together. Go into the mindset that you are more than likely going to have to coach. You're going to have to coach until your kid takes in enough information to start having fun. So people assume, it's an amazing place. It's Knott's Berry Farm. It's Six Flags. It's Universal. It's the Pumpkin Patch. It's Candy Cane Lane. You name it. All parts of the year have all these different things. And so you're thinking, we're going to go see the Easter Bunny. Well, no, your kid's not going to enjoy it until you do some coaching. And oftentimes I think that's the disconnect. Parents start to get really frustrated because you're surprised that it's not joyful. It doesn't mean joy won't come. It means that you have to coach your kid so that they get to a point where they can absorb enough information, they can filter out an equal amount of information, then they can start having fun. So let's talk about little people. One of the things that get in the way of little people coaching to the point where they can have fun is that they will stop other things from happening because they're not comfortable enough. So in our situation, my kids didn't eat because when they're stressed or they're unsure, my kids don't eat. They could be starving, they won't eat. They may take a bite of something familiar, and that's, of course, what I had packed. Their go-to apples or go to this or go to that. And even then, they won't devour it. They will take one bite. But even then, it's difficult for them to do two things at once. Can you panic and eat? I don't think so. We stress eat as adults, but that's a very different mechanism. Children are like, I can't do two things at once. Either I'm trying to survive this thing or I'm trying to eat, but I can't do both. So your kids may not eat. Your kids may not use the restroom, and they usually use the restroom. Why? Because they cannot manage so much going on at the same time. So they're going to say, you know what? I'm going to track what's around me. I'm going to see if I'm safe. I'm going to see if I like this stuff. Then as I get comfortable, I'll let down some defenses so I can perhaps eat a little bit. So I can eat a little bit. So this is the time where you, of course, you do the familiar foods because you don't want to use your kids' energy up at every twist and turn of the day. That's why they sell typical kid stuff, because some children can't take too much newness all day long. The next thing I want to talk about is wishing versus expecting. And, if you've been listening to my stuff for a while, you know what I'm saying. You don't go wishing it's going to be magical. You don't go in wishing they're not going to have a tantrum. You don't go in hoping and wishing they're going to have a fantastic time the whole time. Instead, I want you to expect your kid is going to have some hard moments. So when the hard moments happen, you're like, oh, Yep, I was expecting it. Oh, I didn't think it was going to be the Minnie Mouse walking around that was going to throw her for a loop. But because you were anticipating your kid having some trouble, some challenges, then you're mentally ready for it. So I'll say, you know what? We're probably gonna have 3 meltdowns at Disney. I don't know. It might be a little slow going. We may have some actual meltdowns. So I'm priming myself to expect it so that I don't get resentful, because we've all been there. How much did this cost me? How far did we drive? How we flew and blah, 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 blah. You'll find a lot of reasons to feel the victim, because that's just how human nature is. Because someone is raining on your parade, you're super excited. And so you have to tell yourself, we are going to be excited. This will work, but we got to warm up to the fun. And so that's why it was for us 4 hours to get to the happiest place on earth. So we were there in Disney, but none of this made sense to them. They were very confused. Like, why does Disney have all these shops? Like, why do kids come here to do this, to come to the mall? So essentially, their point of view was, let me scan, make sense. Why? Why are we here? The other thing is, I don't race through, depending on how your kid is. For some of them, the slower you go, the easier it is for them to settle into themselves. If you walk very quickly because they're seeing flashes of things, they may get overwhelmed. They feel like you are tricking them, that you are diving them into something that's much more complicated. So I would suggest moving a lot slower. It does not mean you won't get to the fun, whatever that fun is. But what you're doing is you're telling your kid, like subconsciously, I feel you. This isn't a race. We can walk through this. We can have this experience. And remember, the experience you have with your child during these big events will be different than what you imagined. And it should be. And the reason why it should be is because it means that you are accounting for a different personality type. You are accounting for another person's experience. If it is exactly how you envisioned, then my question to you is, were you running the whole show the whole time? Your kid didn't, are you sure that that was the right fit for your kid? So you're constantly trying to tell yourself, it isn't all about me. It isn't all about me. And I know that's weird to think about, because you're like, yeah, but I wouldn't spend this much money to take my kid to this expensive pumpkin patch, or this candy cane lane, or this thing, wherever it is that you go or do. You have to think about how you imagine it. It may not play out that way, because you're leaving space for someone else to have their experience. You're leaving space for someone to shift something in you, to give you a different lens. Like, oh, like I always did the park in this direction. I asked you at the beginning, well, do you prefer this ride or this ride? And you picked this one. Like, I've never done the park this way. Well, what if you do it this way? What if you're both a little nervous together? What if you're both a little caught off guard together? Many times it evens the playing field. A lot of times your kid feels, okay, they're a little nervous like me too. So that means we are okay, because we're sharing similar experiences. It's very unnerving for a kid when everyone takes on an experience so differently than they do. They feel very alone. They feel very unseen. They feel very unheard. They feel very nervous. But when someone is a little bit closer to sharing some elements of how they're feeling, it helps them to warm up. It helps them to be brave. It helps them to take risks. It helps them to articulate when something's worrying them or maybe not for them. And that's what we want. So 4 hours later into Disney, what did that look for us? It meant that we had to get maps. We got maps. Each child had a map, and I had to explain to them how to read the map. Which things were the rides? Do you see how you have to walk? So if you have a nerd, a deep thinker, highly anxious kid, maps are amazing things. It helps them feel anchored. So when many of you are saying, well, I don't want to buy the Mickey ears, I don't want to buy the balloon, then what you are going to do is you're going to go get a map. You're going to go get a map because that anchors kids, that makes them feel like they have control of something. And no, sharing a map is not conducive to feeling in control. Everyone should have their own map. And yes, they're free. The next thing that we encountered was the shock of lines, like how you have to be patient, but how you're patient for something that you may be terrified about because you're unsure of the ride. So depending on how your kids are, we would pull up a YouTube video and show them parts of the ride. Little was satisfied with just seeing like a peak, like, oh, it doesn't move fast, it's moving slow. Big is far more data needy. So she had to look up miles per hour. So we had to look up how fast does Toad ride go? How fast does, you name it, every ride at the park, we had to know how fast it went. And we also had to compare it to other amusement parks we went to. And we had to see, well, this ride at Magic Mountain, how fast with this one? So constantly our whole conversations or all of our dialogue at Disney wasn't magical. Another element you have to think about, you have to speak the language that your child speaks. So when we were there, a lot of our conversations were about miles per hour. They were about animatronics, hiding wires, what was man-made, what was machine-made. So it was a very technical experience about being at Disney. It wasn't, oh my goodness, because this book, no, it wasn't anything like that. So another example is you're standing in line for Mr. Toad's. Across the way is Snow White. So when you open at the very top, a curtain opens and you see the evil stepmother's face, like peering out. And our whole conversation was, do you think it's a screen? Do you think it's 3 screens? How do you think they're projecting? Do you think it's a projector? Do you think it's an actual curtain or not? Mind you, kids next to us were having very different, oh my goodness, I don't see her apple. Do you think she'll throw an apple down at us? I won't pick up an apple and bite it. So their conversations were beyond what we were able to have. So we couldn't process the storyline. My kids had to feel safe by knowing that stuff wasn't real, that it was man-made. And why would someone make that? Why was it important for them to have that? So those were our conversations at Disney. And so I want you to know this so that you can kind of see like, oh, there's a whole spectrum to how to navigate these experiences. And there isn't a right or wrong. Topic-wise, what's wrong is when you get out of sync with your kid and then you grow frustrated. Why aren't you having fun? Do you know how much this costed? I took a whole days off work. But again, none of that means anything to your kid because they're overwhelmed. They've never been to this place before. They don't know. If I take 2 more steps, what will it look like there? If I go to what do the bathrooms look like at Disney? What does the food look like at Disney? So if you have a kid who is an overthinker, anxious, quirky, very rigid, remember every step forward is filled with fear and anticipation that they may or may not be able to manage that surprise. So again, the reason why it took us 4 hours is because it took 4 hours of coaching and one big meltdown that lasted about 30 minutes, because you can imagine my kids would not eat because they had to, be on guard the whole time. So by the time they got hungry, and then we realized how long the lines were, it was a recipe for disaster. And we had a massive meltdown. And what that looked like was Little threw herself down and was just, doing the twisty turn, roll tantrum as we stood in line for food. What I can tell you I learned is that Disney is impeccably clean because our little top was white and we didn't have a dot of dirt on it, surprisingly so. The next thing is people will form a line around your kid. It's okay. No one made a comment. No one really cared. The only person I think who realized that I had a moment of caring too much that my kid was having a meltdown in public was a mom who just gave me that eye of like, girl, I've been there. And we shared a nod. And that was enough for me to be like, yes, that's right. It's a kid doing kid things. So there are things that happen that I don't like, that I wish didn't happen. But you know what? I didn't spend time trying to talk my kid out of the tantrum. I did the usual. Can I help you? Can I hold you? We'll get food soon. But she was having none of my talk, none of my embraces, none of my kisses. She was done. So I had to wait. I had to wait until the storm passed. She came back to. Then I was able to pick her up and hold her. We were able to eat, and then on we went. So just to wrap it up, what does it look like when your kid finally warms up? Your kid will probably be the one that is the last to want to leave. So because it takes my crew so long to get comfortable with a place, they kind of mark their success by staying till it's over. So it's very important for them to stay till it closes. Why? Because they do really in their heart feel they missed a lot of time. So yes, we were there. They don't really remember all of the parts because their anxiety clouds their ability to remember things clearly. So the 4 hours it took us to get comfortable, I was just deep breathing. I was saying, thank goodness this park is open for, I don't know, 12. I think it closed at midnight that day. Thank goodness we have so many more hours. Thank goodness. It is okay. We are doing Disney the way we are doing Disney. This isn't a race. And in the end, they enjoyed the parts of the park that were the emptiest because they felt like they could breathe. They felt like they could scan enough. Things started to repeat. Oh, they have Disney ears here too. We've seen Disney ears. So the repetitive images, the repetitive music, each time they saw it, now it started to feel old. It was no longer a surprise, but it took a lot of exposure for them to feel that they were no longer being surprised by certain sounds or images, or even systems like people lining up. They could now deduce, oh, it's a ride, it's bathroom, or it's food. I don't think we were doing shows, so they didn't have that, but they could now start. So as we walked more, they were asking less of me. Why? Because they could now take in information on their own and make sense of it. So if your kid is slow to warm and then they don't want to leave, it's because they're trying to make up for lost time. They're trying to feel more confident. They're trying to feel more successful. So yes, you may be exhausted, you may be tired, but remember, in their little mind, this is their do-over. Within this event, they're attempting a do-over, a fresh start, which is why they do want to stay longer. So not to tell you to stay or not, or to go, but if you have it within you to possibly stay, I think now you have a better perspective as to why it's so hard for them to leave. So anyway, this is a long video, but I think that it is really valuable for people to know that all experiences don't start off fantastic. Just because they start off a crap show or a hot mess doesn't mean they're going to stay that way. And I hope that I've given you elements of giving you a fresh perspective. What does that mean? If they do this, what does it mean? How can I anchor my kids? How can I pace them? All of these things will help you, hopefully, during not just the holiday season, but anytime you're doing something that's really exciting for you that you wish to share for your child. Because really, my goal is for you all to enjoy each other more and to see all of these parts as adventures. So they're not hits or misses. They're just adventures with your kids. They're adventures with your partners, figuring out how to grow and have fun together. Have a great rest of the day. If you have any questions about this, feel free to email me at info@askthechildwhisperer.com. Or if you'd like, you're like, oh, maybe I need some steps or some strategies for a big event or something that we are going to be going on as a family or introducing our child to, And if you'd like some private coaching, I'd love to support you with that. Have a great rest of the day and enjoy your future adventures with your kiddos.